preliminary stuff.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start the webinar.
There's Richard.
Morning, Richard.
Good morning. So once again, I think I'm going to go out and have somebody scrub my computer. I'm having such problems with it. Anyway, somebody calling you?
What's it take for a quorum, Jeff?
5. Okay, well, it is 8:32. Maybe we should start the meeting. Okay, so at 8:32, we'll convene the Mendocino County Employee Retirement Association Board into session. And Judy, could you conduct the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Cavanis is absent by prior arrangement. Ms. Forster? Here. Mr. Jurdy?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Cromer?
Here.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
And Ms. Shatmeyer? Absent. Okay. Proceed.
Okay, next on our agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God, indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Right. Well, the next on our agenda is public comment on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments on items that are not on today's agenda?
I have no public in attendance at this time.
Okay, great. Great. First action item is discussion possible action regarding Resolution 2021-08, authorizing teleconference meetings pursuant to the government code. We have to do this during COVID. Would someone like to make a motion?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Ms. Forster, Director Forster.
I wanted to comment that I've been struggling with this item since it came forward in October. And I see this as our public health officer's recommendation, not requirement. I was hoping that the county would come forward and open meetings back up, but I see that there's really just a lackadaisical response in trying to find a happy medium for public board meetings to be open and accessible to the public. And there's a continuation of this ideal of being shut down and just not available for our public. So I'm going to vote no on this today, and I'm going to continue to vote no. I think we need to start finding a different path that maybe is a blend of a shutdown and access. And so that's my comment today.
Okay. We have discussed the issue of needing a safe location that provides enough space for audience members and board members to be spaced apart. Maybe you'd like to be on an ad hoc committee or something to look into locations because, as you know, the conference room at the retirement center is very small and really not appropriate for that.
I think that we should have our retirement office open and we can wear masks, and anybody from the public that would like to come in can come in and wear masks. And I don't think we need to incur costs for finding a separate location that's larger. So I don't want to be on an ad hoc committee for it. I believe we should open back up.
Okay. And what would be the protocols if someone came in and refused a mask?
We could ask them to attend via Zoom.
All right. Can we have a motion or roll call on this item?
The motion is to approve the resolution. Ms. Forrester,
No,
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
Ms. Harris.
No,
Motion's approved.
And I'm here. I'm a no as well. Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, next item is discussion possible action regarding the election of board of retirement officers and appointments of audit committee. And I've been happy to serve for 2 years as chair and be happy if someone else, I'm hoping maybe Kathy Smith would be willing to be chair this coming year.
I'm willing to if you don't want to, Dan, but I'm happy for you to do it too.
Well, I'd like to see you as chair. If possible.
Well, that depends upon what everybody else wants, so.
I'd nominate Kathy Smith to be our chair.
Oh,
I'll second that.
I'm glad I have your support.
You got it.
But we would need a vice chair.
Well, let's get through this first.
Well, if there's no other nominations, can we have a roll call?
Of course. Nominating Catherine Smith as chair. Ms. Shetmer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
yes,
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Reluctantly, yes.
Mr. Cromer,
aye.
and Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
and Ms. Harris.
Aye.
And that's approved.
I would nominate Richard Shoemaker for the vice chair if he's willing to.
I
O-
second.
o- Only if Kathy promises not to travel during the next year.
I'll try to travel between the third Thursday or Wednesdays or whatever day it is.
All right. I accept the nomination.
Kathy, at this point, are you chairing the meeting?
Actually, if somebody else wants to do it, I would decline the nomination and I have no problem not doing it.
I hadn't thought about that, Dan. If you want me to, I will. Is it time?
I can chair the rest of the meeting if you want. It's up to you.
Oh, it's okay. So are there other, I can do it. Are there other nominations for vice chair?
I would nominate Julie Forrester if she's willing to do it.
So you've got 2 nominations out there, Sherry.
I know. Well, sorry, I'm talking about for secretary. Sorry. Sorry.
What are you doing?
Yeah, no. Yeah, Richard for vice chair and Julie for secretary if she would like to.
I don't know, what does that entail? Can someone give me an idea of what that role entails?
I don't know, and I've been the secretary.
Okay,
Jeff probably knows.
Jeff.
I'd have to go take a look at the bylaws. I could do it right now if you want, but I think what Richard just said probably speaks volumes.
Okay, then I'm willing. That sounds great.
In essence, you would chair the meeting if both the chair and the vice chair were absent. Historically, the secretary's been kind of a liaison to our AMCRE group, but that's because it's been filled by an AMCRE member that's retired. So that wouldn't necessarily be a requirement.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Can we vote on both of those offices at the same time? Okay. So is there a motion for Richard as vice chair and Julie as secretary?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All right. So I guess we need a roll call. Judy?
Okay, motion to approve Mr. Shoemaker as vice chair and Julie Forrester as secretary. Sherry Shetmer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes,
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
and Ms. Harris.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, approved.
And we also need to approve an audit committee, appointments to the audit committee. What is the list, Judy, for this year's audit committee?
Oh, you know, I should know this by heart. The
all right.
audit committee consists of yourself, Kathy, Julie, and I'm drawing a
Jen.
blank,
And Jim, I think.
and Jim. And I think, hang on.
I think Catherine and Kathy, both Catherines were on it, I think.
Right, we just had
Robert's saying yes.
an audit committee report. Aren't there 4, Robert?
So is there anyone else on the board who would like to serve on the audit committee? I can remove myself since I have another job.
Well, Kathy, I've never been on the audit committee, so I wouldn't mind being on the audit committee.
Okay, Danny, you can replace me if it's okay with other people. Julie, do you want to remain on the audit committee?
I'd like to pass. I've been on it for almost 3 years now. So if Jerry's interested, or Quincy.
Jerry or Quincy, are you interested in being on the audit committee?
I would do it if there isn't anyone else to step in.
I would respectfully decline.
Okay, so we've got Jerry and Dan. And can we leave Catherine on it even though she's not at the meeting? Yeah,
I think we can.
okay. And do we need one more person? Jim, you're on it. Are you okay with staying on?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Okay, so that is 4 people. So we
Yes.
should take a roll call vote to appoint them. Can you read the names off again, Judy, and ask for a roll call?
We also need to determine who will be the chair of that committee.
Oh, okay.
I nominate Jim.
Will you accept that nomination, Jim?
Sure.
Okay,
Do we vote on this or is it just a chair appointment?
Chair appointment.
Yeah.
So the committee thus far is Dan Jurdy, Jerry Harris, Catherine Cavanis, Jim Anderson, and Jim Anderson would act as chair.
and do we vote on that? No.
That would be your appointment.
Okay, good. I appoint you. Thank you. Thank you all for serving. That would be wonderful to have a new set of eyes on the audit. So thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding adoption of the 2022 board meeting calendar. So do we have a motion to adopt the calendar?
I move to adopt the calendar.
Is there a second?
Chair Smith, I just had a question.
Okay, and I also had some discussion. So, so Julie, go ahead.
I was looking at the December 21st, 2022, and wondering if that could be moved up to December 14th. Generally, that's a period of time that county offices are closed near the holiday. And being so close to Christmas, I imagine that'd be difficult for everyone. So I think that's why we're having this meeting even this week. Or I guess this is the 3rd Wednesday of the month. But if we moved it up, I think that would be better.
Doris and other board members, do you see any problems with that?
No, good idea.
I have no issue.
Okay, so we will change the December board meeting to the 14th. My question was in November. I know we normally have it quite early because of the SACRS conference, but because the conference is the 2nd week, I was wondering why we didn't have it on the 16th of November.
If I can respond to that, I was told that it's because everyone is gone, as far as the chair and oftentimes the executive director, when the board packets need to be finalized and the materials put together. I don't have a strong preference. We can look at any date there that you would like to entertain.
Sherry?
I think another issue is the actuarial report is always done that first week of November, because I think that Siegel has a conflict where they present in person on that third Wednesday somewhere else. And so I think that's why we get moved to because we came in after whatever county it is that has the same board meetings that we have.
Okay.
That's a good point. I think that might be part of it. And they're probably in Fresno, if I'm not mistaken.
Dan?
I was just going to support moving it to the third Wednesday, but it's not essential.
Okay. So because of the Siegel comment, it sounds like perhaps we need to keep it on November 2nd. So the only change that we're looking at is to change December from the 21st to the 14th. So we had a motion before that change. Was that you, Jerry?
I did, yes.
Would you support or amend your motion?
I would be happy to amend my motion to allow for the suggested change.
Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote then, or any more discussion? Roll call vote then.
Okay. Ms. Shetmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
You're silent, Richard.
Mr. Shoemaker.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Hess?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next agenda item is the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we have the minutes of the November 3rd, 2021 board meeting, the October 2021 retirement report, the November 2021 retirement report, the October 2021 preliminary monthly financial report, and the November 2021 preliminary monthly financial report. Are there any items in the consent agenda that a board member would like to discuss? So then we don't need to vote on the consent agenda. We just say it's adopted by consensus. Is that correct? Thank you. We'll move on to agenda number 5. Discussion and possible action regarding, any consent agenda. We don't need to do that. Okay. Agenda item 6, discussion regarding the historical benefit review project status report and project updates.
And this is Sherry Shatmer. I'm going to recuse myself from this item and step out.
Thank you, Chair Smith. In your board report is the monthly historical benefit review project report showing progress to date. The December numbers were prepared before all of the December notices were finalized. So next month you will notice that the December amounts changed. Those were due to some items that were processed and added to the list a little bit later after I had prepared that report. The big item of note is that at yesterday's Board of Supervisor meeting, the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution to conform MSERA's plan document by adoption of 2 SERL provisions to conform to our past practice.
Through the chair, if I may, Doris, did you want to add contingent upon IRS approval?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, that is contingent upon IRS approval when we will be reaching out to them soon, but I don't have a date fixed for that yet.
So therefore, any changes in the computations for those particular retirees won't be done until we get the IRS approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any comments or questions about the report? Yes, Julie.
I just wanted to thank Doris for all her work and Jeff as well, and our actuary for putting that together, and all of the board actually for listening to this and really putting thought into an avenue that we could pursue to minimize the impact to retirees for these two findings at least. I think without Doris, I don't know that we could have got to this point with her expertise and benefits. And I just want to say thank you to her. I'm very grateful that this is moving forward and hope it continues in a positive direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't have an action on that particular item, correct?
No action.
Oops, I see more questions. Okay, Richard?
I think Quincy was up first.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
Either way.
notice it.
I guess one's a statement, one's a question. I'm not sure if it's for Doris or Jeff, but the first one is just if people are curious if it may apply to them or not, then please look at the historical benefit review project and the documents we have online so they understand the error codes we're talking about. And the motion that was passed by the Board of Supervisors is only for specific dates. And it's already pending, obviously, IRS approval, but it's not, it's just for a certain date period for each one of those benefits, which I want to make sure that our viewers are clear on. And the question I would have is moving forward as far as the IRS agreement or approval, does anyone know if it would be handled as an amendment to our current VCP or if it would be a whole new submission?
That actually is also up to the IRS. We'll have tax counsel reach out to our agent to discuss the options available.
Thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, thank you. The November-December group, the 301 actions, is the second most significant group we've had. It's interesting, net benefit change of $1.53, and then my understanding of reading this is the payout is pretty significant. Could you
clarify what these were comprised of?
Thank you.
This month contains the first set of inactive interest corrections, accounts that were inactive and had missed the interest postings that they were entitled to. The inactive interest corrections included on this report were about 194 and 30. That's like 220. So it reflects the first batches of corrections for those inactive interest accounts. There's still another roughly 500 outstanding.
And was there, so these were interest payments? I mean, what was the largest payout in this group, say?
Well, the largest payout you would be able to see in the
report.
detail, for the group. Also, let's see.
Looks like 55,877.
That I believe was a correction for a different type of error. That's a full correction of underpaid benefits. Both of these amounts are reflected in the same column, so you're not seeing the difference between underpaid benefit versus interest on an inactive account. There were some, though, that I believe were in like the $10,000 range because they had been inactive for a number of years. We had to go back and pay interest on those inactive accounts from January 2003 to the present.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Item number 7 on the agenda has been removed.
So if I may, we should check and make sure there's no public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jeff. I need your help. Are there any public comments on this item?
There is no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you.
And somebody should let Sherry know she can come back in.
Well, I actually want to ask one last question. I'm sorry. And that is the $221,000 correction, case 87.
That is underpaid benefits going back to something like 1987. I would have to confirm that, but it was a very long period of time in retirement where the member had been underpaid.
Wow.
That includes interest at the actuarial assumed rate of return for the period of time the member was retired.
Yeah, and then the last question, this is kind of an definitely an interesting concept, but what are the tax ramifications of a payout like that?
It is taxed as ordinary income. The IRS also deems it constructive receipt to have it reported in the year or time that it becomes available. So it's not like the member can postpone receipt of it until January to put it in a new tax year. So there were some members who had to deal with tax consequences of a large payment this year.
Okay. Is this likely the largest payment we'll see?
I do not know. I really don't know. It is probably one of the more significant ones, but at this point, I don't know what else is out there outstanding.
Great. And maybe the last question on this series is, have we talked to our tax attorneys about how that impact could be mitigated? And I realize we're not tax advisors to our members per se, but a one-time payment of significance like that is one heck of a hit for an individual, whereas over the period should have been paid, would have been less onerous. But again, what have we had an exploration of how to soften those blows?
I believe he was referring that to counsel, Jeff.
Yeah, sure.
We have not had discussions about that issue.
Might be worth one.
Now, I should point out, in the event there's a contribution refund or a purchase refund that was made with pre-tax dollars, in those events, the member has the option to roll over that distribution from the plan. That is not an option for certain types of payments like benefit payments.
Thank you.
I appreciate your questions and the discussion, Richard and Doris. That again points out how complicated this whole thing is and how fortunate we are to have Doris's knowledge to work on all of these complicated factors. So thank you very much. So moving on the agenda, item 7 has been removed. So we will move on to item 8, which is discussion. Oops, and we should call Sherry. Is she coming back? Okay. Hi, Sherry. Discussion and possible action regarding the June 30th, 2021 actuarial valuation study and supplemental report. So Director Rentschler.
Thank you, Chair Smith. As you recall, at the last meeting, our representatives from Siegel went through the annual valuation. At that meeting, the board asked for 2 additional scenarios. We received that supplemental report, which is being presented today, along with the full actuarial report. The board's ad hoc committee met with the county's chief executive officer to discuss options contained within the report, and has made a recommendation to accept scenario 2, which was actually in the original valuation study. We do have Dirk Adamson from Siegel here with us today in case any members have any questions regarding the valuation or the supplemental report. And also, Mr. Jurdy, did you have any comments to add regarding the ad hoc committee?
Just that the ad hoc committee felt that scenario 2 had struck the right balance in payments and reducing the debt load, and that also it was well received by the CEO's office as a good option.
Jerry. No, I thought I saw your hand up.
Chair Smith, if I may.
Yes, of course.
I would like to point out and thank Robert for reaching out to the court and our district employers regarding the discussions that were going on about next year's employer contribution rate. Both of them understand where we are with this and with the recommendation of next year's rate using scenario 2. And I believe that's the recommended motion from the ad hoc committee to the board is adoption of the rates for the employees, which is from the valuation, and then the scenario 2 employer contribution rates as detailed.
Further discussion, questions, comments? Yes, Director Cromer.
Thank you, Chair. Whoever is on the ad hoc, I'm not sure who this would be best answered by, but what was the feeling from the county on the $4 million pension gap payment in fiscal year 2022-23? Was there any further conversation about that being considered, or just later on when it becomes a reality?
It was discussed. I think there's still some uncertainty about the upcoming budgets and the upcoming contract negotiations and the expenses that are probably going to be incurred in those. And so I think there was a reluctance to want to spend that right now.
Understood. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or Dirk, would you like to add anything? Director Rensler.
I was just going to ask if Dirk had any comments,
Okay.
or if there were any questions for Dirk. And so I'll leave it at that. Dirk, did you have any comments, or are there any trustee questions for our Siegel rep?
I guess my only comment is that we do support scenario 2. Our recommendation is the baseline results in the valuation, but we do support scenario 2.
Director Forrester.
I just want to comment, and Dan can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is a $22.1 million savings of interest over time to the plan sponsors by making this adjustment from the 18 to the 15 year on the restart layer. And I'm just, this was really important to me. I'm really happy. I think that we should be proud to have made an effort towards reducing the unfunded, as we can see that there's different ways that we can impact that, not just with interest performance, which, actually feels like we don't have much control there as well. But there's factors that go in when the plan sponsor increases wages, or assumptions are changed, or we have a historical benefit review project. So we have this give and take of money being added to the unfunded. And I'm just really proud to say that we've taken an active approach here to look at our current unfunded and bring it down 22.1 million. And, I would like to see it constantly go down and no new additions, but that's the nature of the retirement system, is that you're going to have fluctuations on both sides. So I'm just really happy that we've made this move, and I want to thank everybody for it. I think it's unusual. I don't see this going on in the rest of the state, that anybody's having discussions about how to bring down their unfunded rather than just relying on the interest income. So anyway, I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Executive Director Rensler.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I just actually wanted to thank Dirk and the folks at Siegel. We've been giving them a lot of sort of extra projects lately with short timeframes for turnaround, and they've been very accommodating to our needs. And I just wanted to acknowledge the work that Siegel's done for us.
Director Jerde.
With all that, I'd like to move the recommended action of recommending to the county, this plan sponsors, I guess, scenario number 2. And also note, as I said at yesterday's Board of Supervisors meeting, that when you look at the years since 2012, where the plan is underperformed versus the years it's overperformed, they've come pretty close to equaling out. So I think at this point, there's been enough fiscal reform put in place Not to say that there isn't something else that needs to take place in the future, but I think in general, there's been enough fiscal reform put in place in the retirement system that it's on a pretty it looks to me like it's on a pretty sustainable basis going forward. So, you know, I wouldn't have said that the first couple of years I was on the retirement board. Glad to say it now.
Second,
Thank you.
I second your motion, Dan.
Okay. So is the motion for the recommendation to adopt the scenario 2? It is not for the other item under agenda 8, item 8. Is that correct?
Yeah, Dan, could I clarify the recommended motion on the memo was to adopt for recommendation to the Board of Supervisors the member contribution rates provided in Section 4, Exhibit 3 of the valuation, and the employer contribution rates provided in the supplemental contribution rate report scenario 2.
Yeah, I'd like to amend my motion as Doris stated.
Okay.
Agreed.
How about the second? Okay. Further discussion or questions? Well, I would just like to add to the thank yous that we're going forward. I think that because we have made a positive step toward reducing the unfunded liability, that it would be nice to put something in the newsletter to, you know, I know it's difficult to explain all the details, but something to indicate that the board and the county are moving forward on that. So I think we need a roll call vote on this, Judy, and this is just for item 8A.
Okay, motion to approve item 8A. Ms. Shatmeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Forrester?
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
And Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Approved.
I can see Jeff holding his breath. I didn't ask for public comment, right, Jeff?
That's true.
I keep forgetting to do that. So are there comments, and I don't know, on 8B, adoption of contribution rates for fiscal year 2022-2023? Director Rensler?
That was covered in this. It was.
They were both covered in the same.
That's what I thought.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Judy, regarding public comment, if I may, so we see at the screen, it says 14 participants. Does that mean that we can't, there is no public comment for these items, or that number would be greater, or it's possible that people could be listening and they're not shown in that number? I don't know how that works.
I do not have any attendees present in the webinar.
So we know if the number is 14 that there can't be public comment?
Correct.
Like looking in the room, there's nobody there.
They'd have to join the webinar as an attendee or call in.
Okay, well that can be an indicator in terms of public comment. Then if we see that number is 14, then we could just say there's nobody to make comment.
Well, that's exactly why I hadn't asked then. So we will move on to agenda item number 9, Audit Committee Report and Recommendation. And I was on the Audit Committee. We met on November 23rd, but I will ask Director Rensler to give us an update.
Thank you, Chair Smith. The Audit Committee did receive a report from our auditors, Brown Armstrong, that is provided in your packets. The Audit Committee is recommending that the full board adopt the audit report as presented. The retirement system received
Unqualified.
Unmodified, I'm sorry, thank you. Approval from the auditors on our financial statements, meaning that they found no material issues with our financial statements. In the information provided to us, there are some recommended agreed upon conditions. A couple of those did carry forward from a prior year. The financial statements were presented fairly, and we are happy with the report from the auditor. If you have any questions, Robert or I can assist.
Yes, Director Forrester.
Yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, there was discussion about audit of the benefits and the calculations, and I believe Doris was explaining how that is not part of this annual financial audit report. So I guess there was some concern on that based on, our historical benefit review project here. And is there an audit of the benefit calculations? Do you see that in other systems? And should we look towards having that? Because once we get through this historical benefit review project, I think we'd all like to make sure that we're not going to be in this situation again, and that we have a system of checks and balances to ensure that the calculations are correct, or that we've found them all in the system. Or, what can you tell us, Doris, about audit of the calculations?
Well, we are in a better position now than we were, 5 years ago. We've implemented the Pension Gold pension administration system, and all calculations are done within the system, which is programmed with the rules for each type of benefit calculation for each tier: safety, general, disability, et cetera. And it has the approved types of purchases that can be done in the information and programming. With that, though, we do not currently have internal audit. Our system is too small to have their own. If you go to some of the very large systems like LA, they actually have a department of internal auditors. We can work with our financial auditors who perform the annual review of our financial statements for an additional review of some of our separation of duty and other things of that nature. We could look into hiring an audit firm to perform essentially an internal audit function to make sure that MCERA is following its own policies and procedures, and the difficulty has been finding a firm to do that. I tried to do that in Fresno and actually was unsuccessful in part. The county, if they have internal auditors that review departments, might be a source to get some assistance there. Additionally, though, I would like to say that even as part of our financial audit each year, Brown Armstrong does do sort of a random sampling of member accounts to verify data on that. They may not be doing a complete audit, but they are reviewing certain types of transactions. So there is some review being done. One of the items that's on the list for future action would be maybe to undertake an IT related audit to make sure we're conforming to best practices and have appropriate security as far as access to members' records and things of that nature. And that IT audit was something that even James and I had discussed back when I was in Fresno about trying to set that up. Fresno did go through one. I learned a lot from that process about the need to coordinate better with the county who oversee and actually run our network systems. But that is something that's on the list for future consideration. I don't know if that answered your question sufficiently, Julie, but
yeah, I would like to see something going forward in the audit where there was a sampling of files, maybe larger than it is now, or of a different variation, something so we can feel a little bit more confident going forward that we won't find ourselves in this situation. And I have faith in all the MCERA staff, but it is very complicated. And I think second eyes, or even another retirement system, if the retirement systems partnered together and then sort of they were the experts in auditing another county, could audit us, and then therefore you look at their records in some sort of peer group review. I don't know the solution, but an audit of retirement or active members' files as part of this, I think would be very beneficial.
Yes, Mr. Rivales.
Yeah, Doris kind of mentioned it, but I did want to let the board know that certainly benefits are part of the audit process. The sampling is somewhat small. We don't go through the entire database of everyone. And a lot of the benefit audits for active retirees come from the recently retired pool also. So the item that was at the Board of Supervisors yesterday is really related to legacy retirees and folks that were involved in receiving retirements that was well before the establishment of our pension administration system that we've got today. And again, like Doris mentioned, there's automated features that are scripted in to help with interpretation of those benefits.
Director Anderson, did you take your hand down?
Yeah, just very quickly, because it's been covered by Doris and Robert. I appreciate that on the record that we have that there is an audit, that it may be a small sample, but I don't know what the understanding of the Board of Supervisors was, but that they do audit calculations of retirements. Whether or not that needs to be expanded beyond what it currently is, I think is a good discussion, but I wouldn't want the misunderstanding that that's completely ignored.
Executive Director Wensler.
Thank you. I just had two quick comments. I think I forgot one of them already. One is I wanted to point out that every calculation is actually reviewed by another staff member before it goes into pay status for members who are retiring, and any other type of correction or calculation or purchase is always reviewed by a second staff member before that goes and is processed. Secondly, what I had in Fresno as far as the process is that the audit committee would often select a specific type of activity that they might want our external auditors to pay a little more attention to. So that might be something that this audit committee would consider doing when we start with the, in Fresno, our audit committee met with the auditors twice, at the beginning and at the kickoff, where they could ask them to maybe focus on some of the review for a certain type of transaction or other item, and then also at the end when they got the report. And I just wanted to throw that out there as an option that this committee may want to consider.
Director Shoemaker.
I would share Director Forrester's concerns about the audit. The answers that we've got are helpful. And I think focusing on what Doris just said by the audit committee would add more confidence for us as well. Thank you.
Judy?
I just wanted to add that when we had Galena as independent auditors and we were still using paper files, I believe they did a selection of 100 case files, and that would include legacy members. And they had access to all of the paper file records, all of the calculations. They were reviewing and doing manual calculations. Now that we're with PG and Brown Armstrong, the Brown Armstrong audit team has access to Pension Gold during their period of review so that they can log into Pension Gold and they can review member accounts. Now, obviously, they're not reviewing all member accounts. It is a small selection of those accounts that I believe are randomly selected and audited, but that process is happening.
Yes, Julie.
Just a question based on Judy's comments. When was Galena auditing the benefit records? What year was that?
They were our auditors prior to the agreement with Brown Armstrong. So I believe they were our independent auditors for 6 years prior.
So I guess I'm surprised that they didn't find the errors, is I guess my only final comment. If we had Galena looking at the legacy cases that are in issue that were on paper and hand calculated in files and they didn't catch it, that's just surprising to me. So more cause for going forward with it. I like Doris's idea about the audit committee and bringing those forward.
That also may point out the difference between the auditors who don't have the detailed retirement benefit knowledge that that other retirement systems would have if we were to ask them to look at it. So a lot to think about. Audit committee has some suggestions there. The action item is to adopt the audit report for the year ended June 20th, 2021, June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second if no one else will.
Any further discussion? Or any public comment?
No public comment.
So we need a roll call vote, Judy. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve the financial statements for June 30, 2021. Sherry Schottmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
approved.
The next agenda item, number 10, is discussion and possible action regarding strategic plan consultant contract. I will turn this over to Doris.
Thank you, Chair Smith. At last month's meeting, the board created an ad hoc committee to review proposals, and the ad hoc committee met on November 10th to review the 3 proposals for strategic plan consulting services. After discussion of the proposals and the qualifications of the vendors, the committee decided to recommend to the Board of Retirement to enter into a service agreement with Mosaic Government Advisors, LLC. Mosaic specializes in consulting with public pension organizations. Their entire business is providing consulting services to public pension plans, including governance, policy development, and strategic planning. The committee had ranked their candidates on preferences and realized that they fully wanted to engage with the firm that had such a specialized knowledge of our industry. Attached is the proposed contract for your approval.
I will add that I was a member of that ad hoc committee, and I think Mosaic stood far above the others when we looked at the information. So I was pleased that the committee agreed on that. Director Anderson.
Yes, I just wanted to add, as a member of the ad hoc committee, just for the members of the board, is that there was consensus and a very strong consensus that we felt like we had the best candidate in Mosaic.
So are there questions and discussion regarding the contract that's in the packet? It is one of the more expensive offers that we had, but we felt like what we were getting from the company was worth the cost. And it also is going to tie into, I think, what Doris has in her administrative report about dates and things like that we will be discussing. So if there are no questions, do we have a motion to adopt the strategic plan consultant contract?
I'll move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Then let's have a roll call vote.
Ms. Shatmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
Ms. Harris.
Aye. Excuse me.
Approved.
Thank you. Agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action regarding budget amendment. I'll turn it over to Doris or Robert. Who's next?
Board, you have before you the budget amendment, the proposed budget amendment. In the memo, I go over the substantive changes to the original approved budget. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any directors have questions or comments?
I just had a question. Did this increase in the actuary costs include the recent review for the historical benefit review project? I didn't see that mentioned. Looks like there was other reviews for the unfunded, but I didn't see mention of the, or will we see an added bill for that?
There's a small reserve for an additional bill. We haven't seen any additional bills for the historical benefit review project. So there is a small reserve there. It's not specifically called out as a project.
And it will be sufficient to cover the charges.
We believe so.
Other questions? So I believe since this is a budget amendment, we will need to make a motion.
I move to approve the budget amendment as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll move forward with the roll call vote. Judy?
Muted.
Sorry. Ms. Shatmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy. Oh,
I think he backed out somewhere.
uh-oh. No, he's coming back.
Okay,
Ms. Smith,
yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Jurdy.
Yes, for some reason I was removed as a panelist temporarily.
Sorry.
Oops.
Glad you're back.
Glad you're back. Thank you.
So the motion was adopted, approved and adopted. So we will move on to agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action regarding investment matters. And we have both the October and the November investment performance reports in our packet. Doris, do you want to address anything there? Or Robert, do you want to address?
I'll let Robert.
Okay. Yeah, board, you have before you both those monthly reports. They sort of go in tandem with the preliminary financial reports, which I'm sure you've noticed. As you can tell, we are moving around a fair amount of money this month here, last month in November, I should say, since the transactions are done at this point. But we were able to fully fund our IFM infrastructure allocation. So that's the pending trade on the balance sheet, the $16.7 million. That's also not reflected in the November investment report because it's basically just sitting for 2 days waiting to be sent. That money was sent on December 1st. Additionally, I wanted to give the trustees some news about a rebalance that we're also doing. We are attempting to get a little bit closer to our target in both real estate and infrastructure. On both of them, we're about 125 basis points shy of our target allocation. And so we're actively moving to attempt to true those up. In fact, next month, we're going to be moving almost $10 million into our 2 real estate managers in an effort towards that. So we're not quite done yet. You'll see a few more changes in the December and January reports.
We hope we see fewer red numbers in the December and January reports.
Yeah, you know, the RVK report kind of shows that we have a very high beta in the portfolio. So we do, and Callan has mentioned that before, we tend to swing with the market. We hit home runs or we strike out. So that's just a feature of our portfolio, unfortunately. And last few weeks have been extremely volatile.
Any questions or comments from the directors? If none, we can move on to agenda item 13. And that is the administrative report. So I'll let Doris address it.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I'm actually going to start at the bottom of the report and work my way up. The SACR's legislative updates for November and December were attached. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. We also provided you with the recent RV Coons report that Robert just mentioned that compared our performance to some of the other ones in their public universe, especially the 37 Act systems in California. And it's time, we're approaching the end of the year, that you may need to submit, or you do need to submit a Form 700. I realize that there's not a lot of activity for most of us this year with the pandemic still going on, but your Form 700 is due not later than April 1st. Please submit it to Judy. It's also that we're renewing our fiduciary insurance. The waiver of recourse payment from each trustee is due. It is $9. On the fiduciary policy overall, MSERA saw a premium increase of roughly $12,500. This increase is driven primarily from claims associated with excess fee litigation in the market as a whole, and increase in California claims stemming from the Cyril Pepra changes like the Alameda decision. Specific on our policy, there was an increase in retention from $75,000 to $100,000. I think of retention sort of as the deductible. It's what you have to pay out of pocket before the insurance kicks in and covers claims. And they added the addition of a split retention endorsement of $250 for claims involving a challenge to changes or proposed changes to plan benefits. I think, again, this is strongly driven by activity stemming from Alameda and some of the other challenges to changes in compensation earnable, but the split retention would apply to those types of claims arising out of benefit changes or proposed benefit changes. We did work with our fiduciary counsel, Nossaman, and they reviewed the policy, suggested a modification of the split retention amount. However, our carrier Euclid declined to modify the split retention. So if you have any questions there, I'm also happy to try to clarify anything. As a reminder, our office will be closed the week of Christmas, starting with Monday the 20th and running through December 24th, which is the Christmas holiday since Christmas falls on Saturday. MSERA will also be closed on December 31st in observance of the New Year's Day holiday, since that falls on a Saturday also. That brings me up to some strategic planning meeting details, and I'd like to also address a comment from Trustee Harris regarding the location options. This does vary a little bit from some of the original discussions had last year regarding scheduling a strategic planning offsite meeting. And the reason those proposed locations are in Ukiah or the Hopland area is that was the result of the survey that went out to all of our trustees regarding preferences for meeting location. And Ukiah came in highest, followed by Hopland, and then Mendocino, Fort Bragg tied, and the last choice was Willits as far as the voting among trustees. So I can certainly look at other location options, but we put those, I put them in this memo, the Ukiah Convention Center and the Behavioral Health Training Center, simply because that was the preference that came out of the strategic plans meeting survey that had gone out to trustees. So I would like to get the board's input on the format, the date, so I can nail down the date and allow our consultant time to plan their travel out here. And I would be happy to address any questions from the board.
Yes, Julie.
I was just curious, what are the costs associated with the Ukiah Convention Center versus the Behavioral Health Training Center?
I've not been provided with the cost for the Behavioral Health Training Center yet. They still don't have Wi-Fi. I think they're still working on completing items at that location. So that is contingent to Wi-Fi being installed. The convention center, I believe, was started at about $350 for the space rental, and then goes up from there depending on whether or not you wish to have a working lunch and have them handle the food service for us.
Okay. I'd like to recommend Saturday Afternoon Club as a possibility too.
Good idea.
I'm sorry, you said
Saturday Afternoon Club.
Good
Okay.
idea.
I'm not familiar with the area. It's called the Saturday Afternoon Club. And
Yeah, it's right by the courthouse.
Okay, it's downtown, more or less here in Ukiah.
Right next door to the conference center, actually.
So I tried to contact them initially, and they were not open to reservations due to COVID, but that potentially could be changing as we speak, right? Or not, so I can find out again.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know whether it's proper to meet in a church, but there are lots of churches that have large meeting spaces and halls. If that is something you wanted to look into, I could make a recommendation.
Good idea, Kathy.
I'm just not sure whether the board would.
I think we're open to any space that would permit public attendance, because again, this is a public open meeting. That would, as far as a facility that would meet our needs as far as space and Wi-Fi and things of that. So we're certainly willing to look at options. If you have recommendations, you're welcome to mention them now or email me or whatever.
Okay. The Wi-Fi I would need to verify. I'm not sure, but Jerry, yes.
My note to our director about this being a retreat, and I think about the conference center, which has no windows. We're all just there together. And the retreats we've had in the past, we've at least been able to look out and see nature. Our meetings now for going on 2 years have been remote. Many of our board members are new in the last 2 years, and the opportunity to get to know each other and our executive director, our staff, other than logging on to Zoom, all those things have been absent. And when we have met in the past, I know the coast is probably out, was the lowest choice. But when we met in Hopland at the UC Field Center, there were windows and there was space. I don't know about Wi-Fi, but what I believe is a challenge to me personally is not being able to really see my colleagues and our staff members to discuss openly what we're doing well and what we could improve. And so my recommendation or my input was that the conference center and or behavioral health, I don't know about that, didn't afford us, that chance, and agreed that we would be masked to talk openly with each other and to talk about our planning and what we see for the future of MCERAT and how we can serve our constituents even better. That was my comment.
Yes, Richard.
So with Jerry's comments in mind, the UC Ag Station out in Hopland, I think fits the ticket for being in nature.
Yes, it does.
And it's a wonderful facility. And you can take a break and go outside and take everything in, breathe and go back in.
And we've met there in the past.
Yeah.
But thank you, Richard.
I think in order of hands up, I think Doris, you were next.
Thank you, Chair Smith. And I do apologize. I thought I had the Ag Center on here, but I think I accidentally removed it when I was editing the memo. We can certainly look at that again. At one point, they were not accepting reservation. I know Judy has been, contacting via web forms, email, and calling to try to find places that are open and are maybe an option. And she looked at several facilities where people just aren't getting back to her with an answer on whether or not they would host a group meeting such as this. So we have tried other options. We'll continue to look at other options. And I certainly did not mean to omit the Hopland Ag Center off of this, and we'll touch base with them again.
Thank you.
I think Director Jurdy, you were next.
Yeah, the Hopland Center I think would be a great location. In terms of the dates, I would hope we wouldn't schedule it for a Tuesday because we could have a board of supervisors meeting on that date. And then as long as we avoid the first Thursday of the month where I have Sonoma Clean Power Board meetings. But other than that, I think if we could pick a Wednesday, Thursday, just avoid the first Thursday of the month, it works for me.
Good.
So the date on the agenda item of February 9th and 10th is what you would prefer out of those choices. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. Richard, is your hand still up or is it up again?
No, sorry.
Okay. Does anybody else have a comment as to the dates? I can certainly do the February 9th and 10th if that works for others.
Works for me.
Sorry to be a slight fly in the ointment, but I'm going to be out of town on February 10th, but I could be present on the 9th.
And the 10th would be like a half day where we'd wrap up some strategic planning stuff there. It wouldn't be a full day on the 10th. It would only be a half day. I'm fine with those dates if that's the direction from the board. If not, let me know now. Otherwise, I'll advance that.
So Jeff, would you be okay with meeting with us on the 9th and letting us move forward on the 10th without you in attendance?
Sure. You guys behave yourselves.
I don't know about, we can't promise.
No.
So it sounds like direction to Doris to move forward with the 9th and 10th. You also had a question in there about lunch.
If we look at the Hopland location or the ag, I think at that point we'd be looking at catering or bringing lunch in. Judy, is that correct? Because of the location, there's not a lot of lunch options in that area.
There's no lunch option.
There are.
So yeah, we had
Where I am still.
the last meeting we had it catered. It was just a light kind of deli lunch where you build your own sandwich. So we'll figure something.
We might do some sort of box lunch and have those catered and brought in.
Yeah, that center, I have been in communication with them, but I have not yet heard back from them on whether or not they're willing to rent the site out for a meeting in February. I'm still waiting to hear back.
I think another question that we at least need to consider is, you know, with the changes in the virus, the COVID-19 virus and the different variants and all of that, I mean, we don't know what is going to be allowed over the next few months. And I totally understand, Julie, what you've been saying about being open, and Jerry about getting together and meeting each other. But I think we need to at least have a plan B of whether or not we would postpone it till we can meet in person, or whether or not we would do it via Zoom. I think there may be long-term changes in our society about meeting together, you know, face to face for a while. So I don't know whether there's any discussion on that.
We could move forward with making the plans to schedule the offsite, and if things change as far as COVID restrictions, et cetera, we likely could cancel and move to a virtual format if necessary, and do that pivot. We would just need to make sure that we knew what the cancellation policies would be for anything facility that we may enter into an agreement to. I'm hoping that you know, things continue to improve, and that we can facilitate and a meeting on site. I'd like to meet some of you in person. And
not all of us, but some of us, right?
I've met one or two of them.
Okay.
But I think as a plan B, we can almost universally pivot to a virtual meeting if necessary, or cancel or postpone it even at a relatively late date. But we may incur a cancellation cost.
Okay. Yes, Jim.
Thank you. I couldn't recall if in the Mosaic proposal or in your discussions, Doris, with them, if they had any strong aversion to virtual strategic planning, if they're comfortable with that after a couple of years, or it seems like their weighing in on this would be important as well.
When I had spoken with the Mosaic representative, I had stressed that, and this was of course before Omicron and whatnot. Matter of fact, even before maybe we got into the worst of the Delta, that the board strongly wanted to get back together to do in-person meetings. And they did propose coming out for an in-person meeting. I'm sure that they would be able to accommodate us if we had to move forward with a virtual meeting.
Yes, Jerry.
I would like to see us postponed rather than go to virtual if COVID prohibits our meeting indoor, masked or whatever, until we can meet together.
There may be limited option. If we've already engaged with the consultant and started the process, we might need to kind of, you know, wrap that up, because the contract is sort of for a limited amount of time and services. But we could potentially work with the consultant to postpone the meeting aspect of it if that comes to be. But now it's not just our board. We're working with also the scheduling of a consultant.
Sherry?
And I would agree with Jerry. I would prefer to postpone it. And I know what Doris just said, that may be difficult. I would prefer to postpone it until we could do it in person, as well, maybe even not have masks. So
that would be awfully nice.
Do you want to postpone it now, or do you want to proceed with scheduling a meeting? Because if the desire is to postpone, I won't execute a contract with the consultant at this point, because I don't want to get partway into the process and then have it held up because we don't want to do the meeting to finish the board input on that process. And we would maybe just postpone the whole thing until, you know, things change and we're more certain that we would be able to meet in public. But that's the direction that has to come from this board.
Yes, Stan.
I would hope we would proceed. I mean, I think the key is to get a large enough room. I mean, and you know, that's one of the reasons why I like the Hopland facility. It's a pretty large room. It's got lots of windows. You know, I think we could feel pretty safe in a place like that.
I think it is also important to move forward with the strategic planning process. And if it means that we can't all be together for that process, then we would find a way when we can all get together, we would meet about something else or another retreat type situation. I think with the board members that have come on since we did our last strategic planning retreat and with the changes in executive director, I mean, I think it would be important that we continue the process of reviewing and revising our strategic plan every 3 to 5 years, which we have not done. I think I saw Jerry's hand first and then Julie.
Well, I think you kind of took the words out of my mouth, but it seems that February date, those 2 days are okay for all of us. And the one thing we're not mentioning is our vaccination status and whether we're boosted. And hopefully between now and that date, people who were initially vaccinated will have a chance to get their boosters, which for board members and staff, I would hope would be all of us. The one consideration would be the public participation. I know the last time we went out to Hopland, there was no public participation, but I think, you know, the public is certainly welcome, and that is a large enough room that people could sit if they weren't vaccinated or that they could be masked, they could sit further away from the board and we could conduct the meeting in that manner. I'm hoping that we can work with Hopland Field Station and make that work because it really did fit the bill in a lot of different directions.
Julie?
I just wanted to weigh in to agree with those that would like to meet in person. I'd like to postpone it if we can't meet in person. We're sort of going into the COVID, even item 1 again discussion, but I want to point out that we all go to the grocery store and the grocery store's open and people are there wearing masks. We need to look at what's happening with private businesses that are open and yet we continue to operate in a more strict manner than private businesses. So I think we need to do this when we're all together. I don't think we will have what we need through a Zoom meeting. So I'm for postponing if that's what's necessary in order to make that happen. Maybe after the spring when we have a better, excuse me, idea of what's happening with COVID and Omicron. And but yeah, I'd rather postpone than have a Zoom meeting. And Doris, I am much taller and thinner in person. So you'd know that if you got to meet me, okay?
Yeah, we all are, Julie, yes.
Yeah. Except me, I'm getting shorter every day.
Well, it sounds, I mean, my opinion on that, Julie, is that we're not going to be any more, we're not going to know any better in February or May or whatever, what's going on. It's all unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. My opinion is that we move ahead to meet in person on February, whatever the dates are, 9 and 10, I think. And if by some reason the county will disallow us meeting in person at that point, then we'll make a decision about what to do.
Hear, hear, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I've got to get used to that chair bit. I keep forgetting to call people by the formal title. Oh, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So I think we are done with agenda item 13. Doris, anything else to add? Do you have the direction that you need?
I do, thank you.
Okay. So any general board member discussion? Item 14.
This is just a small suggestion, but Doris, you're meeting in your office, and just outside your office, the walls are covered with these beautiful paintings that we got from, or pictures from drawing from Jandy Kersey. And I would love to see a little color and Mendocino County art on the back of your office rather than have you be just shut off. So that's just a take it or leave it, but
There's a big empty wall right there behind your head.
exactly. Yes,
Duly
exactly.
noted.
Judy's got a flag.
I was just checking in on don't we still have a vacancy that Lee Parker left? And I'm not sure if there's two or for plan sponsor representatives for the retirement board, or is it just one? And where are we at with that process?
We do have a vacancy that is an appointed position, and Dan might know more. As far as I know, we don't have any active interest.
Dan?
Yeah, so there's definitely one vacancy, a member of the public, and I have not heard of anybody who's expressed interest in applying for that position. So if anybody knows of someone that they think would be good for this board, please refer them to the clerk of the board's office or to me. Thanks.
Great. So I think that finishes our open session items. Do we want to go into closed session immediately, or does anybody want to take a 5-10 minute break?
Break, please.
Is that okay? I don't know how long the closed session will take, but Jerry would like a break and I could use one.
And this
Okay.
is Sherry. I will recuse myself from the closed session.
Okay, Sherry, good to see you. So why don't we, I've got 9:58. Why don't we just try to take a 5-minute break and be back here to enter into closed session in 5 minutes. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay. Hi, is this David? Oh, hey, David. Okay, so this is Judy at the retirement office. So you've got us turned off right now for our break. You can just leave us off then for the closed session, but we do need to come back into open session so we can report out. Okay. Okay, I just wasn't sure. I see. I'm gonna have to add you onto my instant message then. So I can let you know, David Smith. Okay. All right, I'll do that and then I'll send you an IM when we're getting ready to come out of closed session. Thanks. Okay, bye. Okay, Tony, I got it. Thank you. Okay. You too. Bye.
Jeff,
Yes.
I don't believe we mentioned to the board the items that got posted yesterday after our emails relating to the closed session.
Yeah, I'll cover that. I assume we're no longer on air. Doris?
We have not been on air since we went to break and Judy asked IT just to leave us dark.
Perfect.
She needs to lock the meeting though to make sure that no one else can
Okay.
pop into the webinar.
Okay,
She should be back in just a sec.
great.
So
Did
since
I
we're-
miss something when I got up and went to the rest? Okay.
No, no. So since we're not on air, I can ask, I'm not used to being formal and I'm an informal person, but we are trustees or directors?
Trustees.
Trustees. So I can say trustee Harris.
Yes.
And Doris is executive director, but it's kind of hard to say all that. I can say director. Right?
Yeah. That's what I would do.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm just a first name basis person, but I will try. So
Kathy,
there's Jude. Yes.
I appreciate that because I was wondering if the board had discussed this and had a protocol, if it's always trustee so-and-so, or if we're on a first name basis, how you prefer to do that.
Yeah, I know. It's tough for me. I worked Mendocino College for 7 years. It was first name basis, but then I went up to College of the Redwoods for 4 years and it was very formal and I had trouble adapting. But
We will call you Your Majesty, Kathy.
thank you, Richard. Yes, I appreciate that. But that's only for those of you that have known me a long time. Oh,
Is Dan back?
yes, I see him.
Okay. I forgot when we went around a few minutes ago to thank Dan for a couple of great years of leadership.
And I
And
forgot
his-
that too, yes.
And his willingness to do this. And Kathy, to you as well for taking
Okay, we're open session.
So we
On
have
the
a,
closed-
oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, on the closed session item 15, the board heard some input and updates from council and the executive director, and no final reportable action was taken.
Thank you. So the final agenda item is adjournment and notice of the next Board of Retirement meeting. The next meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 19th, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. a.m. So do I need a motion to adjourn? Nope. So I would say happy holidays to everybody and thank you for this meeting this morning, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yay.
Holidays all. See ya. Have a good
Everybody.
night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.